Thanks for tuning in. My name's Josh Worthy. I'm the East Facilitator at Sonora Elementary, and I've got two of my 5th grade students here. So they had a really cool project last year that started out as just kind of a crazy little idea that evolved and grew and ended up being a really great project that was featured at conference. And it really was something unique for us because we hadn't really left the classroom since the pandemic. Like, we were doing really safe projects at school, or maybe with Sonora Middle, or maybe really close down the road at Beaver Lake, because that's about a mile down the road. We hadn't really gotten a chance to go out and about yet. And what I was really proud of the boys is they thought outside of the box and they wanted to get outside. So Pablo, how did this all get started? This project, it actually started with you and one of your best friends, Max. How did this all get started?
Well, Max was watching some videos of people digging up gems, and I saw that one little piece could be worth $10K, $30K. So I thought, hey, let's go to a cave and gain some money.
Yeah. Do you guys play Minecraft?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I after talking to Max, after talking to Pablo, they wanted a get rich quick scheme, and hey, let's go dig up some gems, let's dig up some diamonds. We did some Google searching, and we found Crater of Diamonds, which is in Murfreesboro. And how far of a field trip would that have been?
6 hours.
Yeah. So I wasn't going to get Mama to sign off on a 6-hour trip to go dig up some diamonds down south. And so, we were just kind of stuck in that research phase. You guys were Googling different things. You were YouTubing different things. What was kind of the next step at that point?
Going to Silver Dollar City.
Yeah. The boys were looking, and they were like, hey, there's some caves up in Silver Dollar City. Let's go up there. And that was an even harder field trip because in Springdale they won't let us leave the state of Arkansas without special board permission. And sure, Silver Dollar City's about an hour and a half, 2 hours away, but I don't know if we could have gotten permission to go up there and do that. But yeah, the boys were just looking up caves and digging, and they wanted to get their hands dirty. We really hadn't gotten into photogrammetry or anything like that. And so I asked you guys to find some caves that were in the state. And you remember how many caves you found, or which ones?
Like 4 or 3.
4? Yeah. Which ones did you find?
I don't remember the names.
You don't remember the names? I know we looked at the Spanish Cave, which was in Siloam Springs. War Eagle Caverns popped up. Onyx Cave in Eureka Springs popped up. And a couple of other ones. What was kind of unique is War Eagle Caverns, they're not too far away. They're about 30 minutes away. But the kids get to go on a field trip in 2nd grade, which you guys missed out because of COVID. You guys didn't get to do that 2nd grade field trip. And so the boys were thinking, hey, let's go check out the caves. Before that happened, though, like, as my facilitator hat on, I was like, okay, I've got to get these kids connected to some sort of technology. They're going to go out there and they're going to try to dig or ask to dig, and that wasn't going to work out. So, Luis, tell me about this student training that you guys went to.
So I went to the student training. It was at the University of Arkansas. And we were looking at mapping of the cave, not the cave, but like the little places near the cave.
Like around the park?
Yeah, we didn't even think of the cave itself. We were like thinking of mapping the gift shop, the bathrooms, the maze, and we looked into it and we saw a cave was there. Mm-hmm. And we thought about mapping there.
What did you learn? What was the big thing you learned from that experience?
We learned about ArcGIS mm-hmm. and the servers there, mm-hmm. like server 1, 2, 3.
Yeah. So, from my experience, I feel like ArcGIS is one of the most confusing and crazy softwares that we have in the entire classroom. And you guys were able to pick it up pretty quickly, you think?
Not really quickly, like pretty slowly, steps by steps.
But server 1, 2, 3 made things a little bit easier.
Yeah.
You could go out and just, find a point on your phone and it was on your map.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. So tell me about our client at War Eagle Caverns, who did we reach out to?
Guy Shivani.
Tell me about him.
He's the owner of the War Eagle Caverns cave, and he and Jeff were like mining up like to make a little bit more room so they can map more. And we contacted them to ask if we can map the cave, and I'm not so sure if he said yes, but we talked more about it, and I think he said yes.
Yeah, he was really interested in what were you guys gonna do? Like, you're just gonna map my bathroom? You're gonna map my gift shop? You're gonna map our maze and all of that. He was like, that doesn't really serve a purpose. Luis was talking a little bit about Guy and Mr. Jeff. They were doing some digging into the cave, and I kind of inquired a little bit about that, on the phone separately. And I was like, hey, what are you guys doing? He's like, well, we're expanding our cave. Our cave goes deep to about 2/3 of a mile. We're going to expand it maybe another quarter to half mile, just so that we can get further into the cave. They did special headlamp tours where you could get up and waders and crawl through and spelunk just a little bit, very, very light spelunking. But they were like, we'd love to open that up so more people could get in. We're just not sure if it's wheelchair accessible. And it's not just a thing of measuring the width or even the slope, but like when you're in a cave, things come in at different angles, and we just weren't sure if we could fit a wheelchair in there. And so I immediately thought back to some training that we did long time ago, back in probably 2016 with CAST, and it was called photogrammetry. And that's where you take a lot of pictures and you stitch them together, and you can make a 3D solid, whether you want to 3D print it, or maybe you can make an immersive world. And so, putting my facilitator hat back on, I showed the boys the video of time scanners. Do you guys remember that video?
Yeah.
Tell me about time scanners.
Well, they had one big scanner which cost like $10,000, and it could scan the pyramids and Mount Everest.
I don't think they did Mount Everest, but it was Machu Picchu.
Oh yeah, Machu Picchu.
Which is in Indiana Jones. So like Malcolm and Cass got to go and do these really cool, mapping projects where they had this scanner. And I think it's closer to 30,000. It's a very expensive scanner. And we emailed Malcolm and said, hey, can we get our hands on that scanner? And he's like, not so sure just yet. I've never heard of this cave, and I've met you guys, but I don't really know a whole lot about like what your plans are. And so photogrammetry was a much more cost-effective idea. And so after I did some digging, and if you get onto CAST website, they've got all of their old slideshows of all of their trainings from the last 10 years or more. And so we pulled up that old slideshow, and we saw a little bit of how photogrammetry works. So an example of what you would do with photogrammetry is you take a lot of pictures. And Luis may be able to explain this a little bit better. What's going on in this picture?
They're taking pictures on each side of the little house so they can make a little video about it, or like a little map.
Yeah, I mean, you're essentially 3D mapping, and you've got pictures low, you've got some medium pictures, you've got some high pictures, and with all of those pictures, you have a 3D solid that you could use. And we wanted to reverse this. Instead of doing a 3D solid, we wanted to take pictures of everything around us and make an immersive world. And after talking with Malcolm, he said, you just need to take one measurement. Maybe measure the gate up front, or maybe measure a handrail. But if you get one measurement using photogrammetry, you can measure the rest of the cave because it's all very precise. Tell us about our first trip out. Once we kind of said, hey Guy, we're gonna come out and take some pictures. We're gonna use a camera and some lights, like the lights we have here. Tell us about that experience, because it was not a good one.
So we had a camera that took a photo about 180 degrees, and we took about one photo low, one photo medium, one photo high, and did it like left, middle, and right. But then when we went back and did a zoom, with a person that was really good at that. He told us that it was not the best way to do it, and that we had to do one photo, take about one to 3 steps, and then take another photo.
Right. So we went out there with the DSLR camera that had a smaller lens on it, but you really want as wide of a lens that's with a small depth of field. Like you don't want anything, or a wide depth of field. Right. So you don't want anything foggy or fuzzy in the back. You don't want anything fuzzy in the front. You want everything to be, flush. And we went out there with our camera lens and we took all these pictures. We were probably taking way more pictures than we needed to. And we were taking them high, medium, low, left, right. We came back with thousands of pictures. We tried to put them into our computer and it came out not looking like this. And in fact, I felt like it looked like just a star. Like if you were to look at like a 3D image of a star, it had all these points and nothing was solid. And it was really ugly and it crashed our computer. And so I think the gentleman that Pablo's talking about is Joseph Jordan. He was a great help for us. He was a partner. So if we're looking at CART and if we're looking at our Essential 5, he was kind of our big brother on this project. I stumbled across some of his work on YouTube. He had a caving video of talking about photogrammetry in the Ozarks. And I was like, this is great. I was thinking maybe up in Missouri, but no, he was here in Northwest Arkansas taking pictures. And his master's thesis was attached to the back end of that video. And I started reading through it and I was like, wow, this guy went to the University of Arkansas. Malcolm and Brian from CASP were actually referenced in his sheet. And I was like, this guy is great. We need to talk to him. And so I did some Facebook stalking, since you guys don't have Facebook, and found out he's actually a former East kid from Harbor High School, which is here in Springdale. He works in Conway. He works for the Highway Department in Conway as a GIS specialist. So just took a chance. We wrote out in a Google Doc an email of what we wanted to say to him, copied and pasted, and I sent it from my personal email account so it didn't look like it was spam. And he responded a couple days later, and he was like, we need to talk, we need to Zoom, because you're doing it all wrong. And Pablo nailed it. He was like, you need 180 degrees. You need a wide view, but you don't need a DSLR camera. I used a GoPro, and so we got our GoPro 5 and took one of our lights, and he basically said, take a picture, walk 3 steps, take a picture, walk 3 steps, and we went from like 5,000 photos down to maybe 3,000, but they were able to be stitched together much more smoothly, to where we were able to come up with a really cool 3D map. Luis, I'm going to go ahead and hit play. Can you kind of tell us what's going on here in this picture and explain just kind of the ins and outs of what's going on?
Okay, so from the beginning, there's the outside is pixely because pretty much we didn't take pictures around it. We only took it inside of it.
So tell us, like, where were we standing? Were we up on top of the rocks? Were we on a ladder? Like, what was the process of taking these pictures?
We were on the floor. We were just taking 3 steps. And it pretty much took a picture of the top, bottom, and then sides.
So the GoPro, it's really handy because it takes about 120 degrees. It's not quite 180 degrees, but it's about 120 degrees. And so this would have been a picture, but as we went a little bit further, you would have another picture and you would see a little bit more of this rock edge, or maybe a little bit more of this wheelbarrow line. And a lot of people were saying, hey, did you take that with a drone? It's like, no. You take a bunch of pictures and you have to face the same way. You can't just start getting crazy and taking pictures in all different directions. Yeah, you just kind of go straight through the cave and take pictures facing one direction. So, Pablo, what else did we do while we were traveling the cave?
Well, some people were working on expanding the cave, like we said earlier. So there were like a little bit of shovels, but we didn't mind that. So
what was going on right here? So this is the gate. So do you remember this area? Like there's leaves right here. Do you remember why there were leaves there?
Wasn't it because of the trees? It was up above.
Yeah, the cave opens up and there's like a skylight. And so all the leaves come down into the cave right here. And this is just the entrance. There's 4 other segments that we kind of have to put all together just because we don't want the computer to crash. But I mean, you get a lot of detail of, okay, this is actually the greens that exist there. There you've got, you know, the rusty gate that's right here. This is actually a power box that turns on the lights within the cave. Light was a big deal. You needed to make sure you had plenty of light so you could see every little bit. Shadows can kind of confuse things. They make edges round that may not be round. They may be sharp. And I think this was right here was our point of reference. We measured this gate, but we also measured the distance between each bar. And mathematically, you throw that into your software, which there's a lot of different stitching softwares that you can use. The big thing is licensing. But we're using Reality Capture. Reality Capture is free to use. You just need to be able to license it through Epic Games, which is usually blocked in most districts because Epic Games created Fortnite. And so your kids may have tried to download Epic Games in East. They may not actually be playing Fortnite. They may be trying to do Reality Capture. I had to send in a special work order or tech order to our technology director, and he was really cool. He unblocked it for us so that we could use it. But yeah, when you measure these points, it's now measures out the distance of the rest of the cave. So, and like Pablo said, this was our relationship with Joseph Jordan. I know a little bit about GIS. I know a little bit about photogrammetry. Joseph has a master's degree in it. And so we actually had a snow day and we had a Zoom with Mr. Jordan, and this was the cave that he mapped as a 20-year-old kid, 21-year-old kid. And just basically, you can see that 3D solid. And so, you know, his big things were light, wide view, and like that depth of field has to be just right. What's our next steps? Let's transition to what our next steps. What are we planning on doing this year? Because that was a great project. We were able to see the slope of the cave very naturally. We were able to give Mr. Shivani some input. He also has that video housed on his website. What are our next steps as far as the East process? Like, do we have more clients out there? Are we going to go back to the cave and do the exact same thing, or are we going to beef it up a little bit?
We're going to change up the cave. We might just, because we're looking at Jeff, because he told us last time we went there that there was another cave that he was going to work at, which was Onyx Cave, which he said it was a little bigger than
War Eagle
Caverns.
Mm-hmm. So I think that's really important for facilitators and students to understand that when you're out on these field trips, you're going to meet a lot of different people and you're going to shake hands with a lot of different people. Mr. Shivani's right-hand man was a man named Jeff, and he literally lived in a trailer just down the hill from the cave. And he's like, I really love working here, but I have a new opportunity in Eureka Springs. They want me to be the GM, so basically guy's job, at Onyx Caves in Eureka Springs. And you guys work really well. You seem really nice. In fact, we talked to him more than we talked to Mr. Shivani. He said, come on out, you guys can do this at our cave. And so he's like, give me a couple of weeks so that I can get my feet wet. But we have another client with another possibility there. Pablo, tell us about the possibility of using a drone. We did talk about potentially mapping with a drone.
So when we were mapping the War Eagle Caverns cave, we saw a little hole that we could not reach. So I wondered, what if up in the hole there's a little space that we can map?
Mm-hmm. So what Pablo's talking about is there's this, it's not a tower, but it's like a big column. Yeah. It's a big hollow column. And you can see the sky. You can see that there's grass growing in it. It probably goes up another 20, 30 feet. Can't really get a GoPro up there to take pictures to get the depth of that impression in the rock. And so it would be possible to fly a smaller drone, maybe a DJI Spark. I would feel confident putting that up there. But you can do this entire photogrammetry process using a drone without having to press you know, having to physically take a step and press. You can stay in one spot. And it is a privately owned cave, and so they've been very cool saying, as long as you don't wreck into any like stalactites or stalagmites and ruin any part of the rock face, you guys can go about and do that. You know, and this is something that as a facilitator it can be tricky, because a lot of times we push problem first, find the problem first, and then you have an ease project. But sometimes, and especially in this situation, the kids knew what they wanted to do. They knew that they wanted to dig in the dirt and find gems, but they didn't really necessarily know the problem first. Sometimes when we're brainstorming projects, I just ask the kids, who do you want to work with? Because once you start having those face-to-face conversations, that problem's going to show up eventually. And I know a lot of times we get hung up on problems, especially 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders. With their life experience, they don't see the problem surface level all the time. Sometimes you have to dig a little bit deeper. And that may involve picking up trash with the local Watershed Alliance just to have that conversation. It's not an ease project, but you're doing that dance and you're getting to meet those people that with that conversation you start to figure out, hey, we could help you with this. And I think that's the situation with Jeff, is he wants us out there and we want to go see him, and one afternoon we could find something that we could partner up with very quickly.
So just like Josh shared that his students are mapping a cave using millions of points of data, East is also learning how to use data and dots to learn more about our students' educational experience. So we believe that students are the experts when it comes to their own educational experience. They know what makes them feel good, what challenges them, what they like about something, and what they don't like about something.
Absolutely. I think in Luis and Pablo's case there, they were so interested in that project. If it was anything that was my idea, it would have died within a week or two. They wanted to get their hands dirty. They wanted to dig for gems. Couldn't exactly do that as a feasible project. But to get them out into the cave and then seeing their eyes light up of, this is pretty cool, now let's take some pictures. That aspect of them enjoying it, but also feeling challenged at the same time, gave them immediate buy-in, and it was very powerful.
Yeah, because that's not exactly something you just know how to do immediately.
Absolutely not.
No. So in East, we've started using the Wellington Engagement Index to let our students demonstrate and tell us how they feel about their educational experience. So it is a simple XY axis where students talk to us and tell us by putting a dot on this grid about how challenged they feel and how much they enjoy the experience. So one dot will represent a particular class, and these quadrants all have nicknames. Ideally, in education, where we want students to land is here, where they are challenged and they're enjoying the experience. This is our goal, and this is what we've been learning in East. We started using this 4 years ago. We started out with 17 programs. This past year, we had 42 programs working with it, and almost 3,400, or right at 3,400 students that gave us input and information. But we had 3 main goals in using this and what we wanted to learn. First and foremost, we wanted to help you guys,
Sure.
to give you a way to see data and help you propel your own growth. We wanted to be able to identify some best practices for reflection, because this tool forces students to think back over the past 6 weeks and say, what's my experience been during that whole time frame, not just today, right now. And then we wanted to see, how do we align with other classes too? So this slide represents how some of our facilitators have introduced Wellington to help maybe younger students think in that XY plane, and how they've used the data collected to actually reflect and talk about, here's what my experience is, here's how you can challenge me more, and here's how I might enjoy my experience a little bit more. We can see here a facilitator who practiced with their students where each color of dot represented a different class period. So then they could see, how does an experience change for students from one class to another? What's different about one group? What questions could I ask? So for example, this group, they enjoy being there, but the challenge level is not so high as compared to this kind of blue-gray group. So the facilitator then can ask questions of themselves and of the students.
I had a lot of fun with this, introducing it to my students this week. We're one of the new schools for 2023-24. We actually started off with ice cream. It's silly, but everybody can connect to it. Do I love ice cream because it's delicious and it's sugary and it's cold? Do I hate it because I'm allergic to it and it gives me gas and I have a tummy ache? And then, is it challenging? Like, do I eat it so fast I have a headache and it hurts? Or maybe it melts too fast and it gets all over my clothes? Or maybe not challenged, like me, I can eat gallons of it. And so my dot was actually right over here. I love it and I'm not challenged. But and we also did it with like scary movies. I either love scary movies or I hate them. They really scare me or they don't scare me at all. I'm over here because I like Care Bears and unicorns. But the kids really like to do that, especially when they can physically see, oh, that's me and that's my friends. What's unique about it, though, especially when you bring it into the classroom, is it's fluid. Right now, a lot of my kids are starting here because we haven't really gotten into projects yet. But over the next 6 weeks, my goal is to challenge them and trend them up into that first quadrant that really gets them engaged.
So this, in general, is what we're seeing year over year. And we're very proud of that because we know that our facilitators are working to grow our students. And with student growth being the heart and soul, that makes challenge easy. Because when you want them to grow, you're going to throw them into the cave and figure it out.
And I think one of the major reasons why East finds themselves in such a high quadrant is it's so personalized. In PE, a lot of kids, they may love it, but they don't feel challenged because it's very basic skills. You're not going to teach me how to throw a spiral like Tom Brady. That's very advanced. We don't have time for that sometimes. But in East, I can talk to Pablo individually and Luis individually and really tailor that education for them. And it's really been something powerful for me to share with my own PLC at the school. It's very anonymous. The kids are a number, and I don't ever even see that number. All I see are the trends. But if I show this to my PE coach in the building, he may say, well, they love me. That's awesome. I got to make PE a little harder today. Or try to challenge some of those kids that have their hands in their pockets. It's really valuable information. It almost becomes like healthy competition for us to try to push up into that higher echelon.
So speaking of trends, this is what we're seeing over the past 3 years. And we've divided this out into the K4, 5-8, and 9-12 experience. And these are dots that are placed by students from across the East environment. And you can see, in general, those are trending in that love and challenge area. And that's exactly what we want to see. For language arts, in that same K4, here's the spread that students have reported of this is my educational experience. And here for math, a little bit more on the challenge side, but a little more equal on the love to hate. So let's look at the 5-8. Again, you can see, thankfully, we are still pushing more here. The language arts are coming up in the 5-8. And math is definitely staying steady in that higher challenge level area. And then in 9-12, again, here are our trends. So we're very proud of what we're seeing here in East, and we're more proud of the PLC that this has created. As singletons on a campus, it's kind of hard for you, isn't it?
It's tricky. I feel like I'm on an island. We were talking about this earlier. I actually moved my classroom this past year because I had been in the same room for 12 years and nobody's connected to me. I wanted the kids to be in my room. I wanted them to walk by my room and say, hey, what's going on in there. And now I'm connected to our librarian, I'm connected to a media specialist, as well as our technology coordinator, and it makes you feel like you're not alone. It's the same way with your PLC. You know, you may have your GT teacher, you may have your East facilitator, you may have your librarians, and all of them together. It's still kind of a lonely place. But when you can see as far as the efficiency and how engaged your kids are, which we all have in common, you at least are speaking a similar language, and you've got the data to prove it. I know that when it comes to my personal growth plan that needs to be measurable, I can show a lot of concrete evidence. And you know, we talk about when we do our evaluations at the end of the year, you know, we vacation in distinguished, and we're always trying to be achieving. With East, I'm vacationing and achieving, and I hang out all day, every day, in distinguished. So it's pretty cool. There's proof in the pudding.
Here are the main things that we have learned over the last 3 years, and as we keep looking forward to this year. In general, East students love the experience of being challenged. They like to establish their own challenge level, and that challenge doesn't always equal hard. We've had students tell us that hard is doing something just because I have to. Mm-hmm. Being challenged is doing something because I want to. So that's a big distinguishing factor. We've learned that this is absolutely relevant professional development for all of our facilitators, because they can share that commonality that they don't necessarily get on their campuses. And it helps them make data-driven decisions, just like Josh was saying, for themselves personally, but also for their students, so that they can see what kind of moves do we need to make. Do we need to make it a little more fun for a little bit? Maybe we're stressing everybody out because we're in the middle of projects. Or maybe our projects can go just a little bit further and a little higher. As an organization, it's helping us to better support our facilitators, because it too is giving us that data-driven conversation that maybe wasn't necessarily available before this. So we're super excited about continuing to use the Wellington Engagement Index, and hope to continue growing it and keep challenging kids.
It challenges me as a teacher as well. I'm looking forward to this November. I guess you guys are trying something new, where we're having a face-to-face Wellington PLC, where we're going to all meet up in Little Rock. I've already got people asking me, hey, how can we do photogrammetry in my class, or at least a little bit of ArcGIS mapping, which I don't mind spreading the love. But that face-to-face PD, that face-to-face PLC is very valuable. East does a great job creating conference, creating seminar. We find time to meet face-to-face at student trainings. Now we've got even another platform for us to connect. We use Basecamp quite a bit to stay connected, and it makes us all have better best practices.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us for this webinar, and we look forward to hopefully hosting more of these in the future.